Hi, I'm Lisa Bardot, and I hope you're feeling in the fall mood because today I'm going to be teaching you how to draw a colored pencil pumpkin in Procreate. I'll be taking you from sketch to a completed pumpkin piece with a little bit of magic sprinkled in along the way. You can use what you learn in this tutorial to create a whole patch of beautiful pencil-y pumpkins. For this tutorial, we're going to be using brushes from Pencil Box, one of my sets that I created to emulate the look and feel of real pencil on paper. This set has a lot of tools and textures, plus these really fun, time-saving quick scribble brushes, which I'll be showing you how to use in this video. You can find these at bardotbrush.com. As always, if you're new to Procreate, please check out my Procreate for Beginners tutorial to get you familiar with the basics. Let's get started. Let's create a new canvas. I'm going to tap the plus sign in the upper right, and I have a canvas template saved for my favorite size, which is 3800 by 2800 pixels. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And I'm going to start this off with a sketch. So I'm going to go into my brushes, and here I am in the Pencil Box set. And my favorite brush to use for sketching is the sketching pencil from that set. So I'm going to choose sketching pencil, and then I'm going to go ahead and just choose black as my color. Pumpkins come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, so you can get a little creative with your shape, but draw a rounded shape, something like this. Next, you're going to define where your stem is going to be. So I'm going to draw a little oval for my stem. And now I'm going to define kind of the sections of the pumpkin starting in the middle here. So I'm going to start with kind of just like this teardrop shape like that. That extends down here beyond the shape of my first original shape. And now I'm going to draw another line that kind of curves around, kind of imagining the curved, like the curvature of the pumpkin. And then also makes that bubbly shape down at the bottom. So we're going to keep adding lines like that, almost like a beach ball. As we do the sides of the pumpkin, it's a little less bubbly than it is at the bottom. So those are a little less bubbly. And then back here, we start to get a little bit more bubbly. And then for this little section here, I'll just draw a line. And then it'll be nice and bubbly there. And then I'll just add a curve right there to finish it off. So there is my pumpkin sketch. I'm also going to sketch in the stem right now. So I've got the bottom of the stem here, and I'm going to draw the other end of the stem. This is going to be an oval that's a little bit smaller than this one. And then I'm going to connect the two with kind of a meandering line like that. And then I'm going to connect these ovals like this. So that is our pumpkin sketch. I'm just going to recenter that a little bit. There we go. And now we're ready to start coloring. So I'm going to go up to my layers. I am going to create a new layer. I'm actually going to put my sketch layer on top of this new layer. So I'm just going to drag and drop it up. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity of my sketch layer by tapping this little N and then just reducing the opacity like that. I'm at about 15%. Just want to make sure you can still see it. And then we want to make sure we're on layer 2, the bottom layer. All right, let's jump into color. So I'm going to go to my brushes, and to do a lot of the coloring, I'm going to use this brush called Coloring Pencil. So I'll go ahead and choose Coloring Pencil. Now it's time to pick a color for our pumpkin. Pumpkins come in all sorts of beautiful colors. I actually have created a pumpkin color palettes for members of my Art Makers Club. So I'm going to choose some colors from there. This beautiful peach is the color that I'm going to use. If you want to just pick one from your color picker, it's over here in the orange, just like a really nice light kind of peachy orange color. And then for my brush size, I am at about 30–40%. To color in this pumpkin, I'm going to show you a technique using my quick scribble brushes from the Pencil Box set. I created these brushes to achieve a hand-colored look in as little time as possible because I do not have the patience to sit there and color things in by hand. I'm going to trace around the outside of my shape with the coloring pencil, just kind of following all those nice curves of the pumpkin. And I want to make sure that as I go around, I'm making a completely closed shape, that there are no holes in the edges of my shape. So there we go. I've got my completely closed shape. And then I'm going to go to the selection tool, make sure I'm on automatic selection mode. And then I'm going to tap and drag to the left or right like this. And I'm going to go as far to the right as I can without filling in the center of the shape. So right about there. There we go. And you should have some little blue around the edges like that, and that's totally fine. Then you're going to invert the selection. So tap right here where it says invert. So now basically we have just the inside of the shape selected along with some of the outline that we already drew. Now we're going to switch to one of the quick scribble brushes. I love these brushes. I'm going to choose quick scribble fill. It's the first one here. And you want to adjust your brush kind of size to kind of see how big you want the texture to be. So you can play around with that, but I am at 21%. And now you're going to just start coloring it in like you normally would, except it goes way faster because of the settings and texture of this brush. So I like to color in kind of following the contours of the shape that I'm drawing. So in this case, I'm kind of like following the like ribs of this pumpkin. So just go all the way around and color it in. I also like to lift my pencil up and kind of color over some of the spots that I've already colored because this brush has some built-in like brush stroke edge texture. So that just adds to the kind of dimension of the colored pencil look. So I'll keep going all the way around. And this is a pretty big shape. Like it takes up most of my canvas, this pumpkin. So you can only imagine how long it would take to color this all in by hand. And of course, you know, you could use color drop to fill something in Procreate, but then you don't get this beautiful like hand colored texture with these little like white bits kind of sticking out like it would, you know, like it would happen if you did it with real colored pencil on paper. Okay. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now, before we deselect and get out of our selection, we're going to add a little bit of shading to the bottom of the pumpkin. So I'm going to go back to my brushes and I'm going to now choose the Quick Scribble Soft Fill. I love this brush. I made it to emulate like really soft kind of colored pencil coloring. So now we're going to choose a color that is just a little bit darker and more saturated. And you can play around with the brush size again. I'm at like 60%. And then I'm just going to draw, just color along the bottom. Again, following kind of the contours of the pumpkin, but just along this bottom edge, just to kind of give the whole thing a little bit more dimension. Now I can deselect by tapping the selection tool, and I have my pumpkin all colored in. Next, I'll add some line work. So I'm going to switch brushes to the rough paper pencil. This one's got a lot of really nice texture to it as well. And then I'm going to choose a color that's even darker and more saturated than the color that I used at the bottom here. So I think that color is pretty good. My brush size, let's do like 20%, maybe a little bit bigger than that, almost 30%. And we're just going to draw in some lines, kind of following the lines of our sketch, all the way up to where the stem is going to be. Okay, going all the way around. Okay, so now we've got some lines on our pumpkin. Next, we're going to do the stem. So we're going to go up to the layers, tap the plus sign to create a new layer. We'll put the stem on its own layer. And we're going to go into our colors, and I'm going to choose a green from my palette here that I have for my Art Makers Club members. But if you want to follow along, you can choose kind of a yellowish green color. And we're almost like right here in the middle of the color wheel. And I'm going to switch back to my coloring pencil so that I can draw the outline of this shape. So I'm just going to trace around the edge of this like that. Again, making a nice closed shape. And as long as I make a closed shape, I can color it in really easily with the Quick Scribble brushes. So to do that again, we're going to go up to our selection tool, automatic selection mode, slide back and forth until we just have the outside selected like that. And then invert it down here. And then I can choose the Quick Scribble Fill brush and just color that in super easily. Again, following kind of like the way that this stem curves. So that way the texture follows that shape. Great. And I'm also lifting my pencil up a couple times so I get that extra little bit of texture from this brush. Great. And then if I want, I can add a little bit of shading like I did on the pumpkin. So I'll choose that soft fill, quick scribble soft fill, get a color that's a little bit darker, more saturated, and maybe just add it to like the bottom edge, maybe a little darker, a little bit smaller with my brush size. There we go. Kind of the bottom side like that. Great. And at this point, I can turn off my sketch. So I'm going to go up to my layers. I'm going to turn off the layer with the sketch. Just uncheck that box. I'm going to add a little bit more detail to this pumpkin stem. So I'm going to get a color that's a little bit darker, more saturated, maybe even a little cooler. So I'll go this way on the color wheel and switch back to that rough paper pencil for these details. I think that color looks good. And then I want to make my stem look like it's kind of like twisting around. So I'm going to draw a line that kind of starts here in this bottom corner and then curves around like that. So kind of like an S curve, and then also comes around like that. So you can imagine it's like spiraling around the stem. So one curve there and one S curve there. And then I'm just going to fill in lines around it. So just following that same curve around and following this and kind of like blending the curviness of those two lines. There we go. So now I've got it kind of curving that way. And then I just need to fill in more lines on this side. So I'll do that. Lots of little lines that kind of like start and stop. And to create some of these lines, I'm using kind of a variance of pressure. So I'm going light, heavy, light to create these nice tapered lines. Light, heavy, light. This is a really good skill to practice. Light, heavy, light. I use it all the time. Takes a little bit of practice to do, but makes some really beautiful line work. Okay, so I've added a whole bunch of lines to my pumpkin stem, and you can see that it looks like it's kind of like twisting and curving around. And finally, we're going to add some vines and leaves to our pumpkin. So I'm going to do that on a new layer. I'll place the layer between my pumpkin and my stem. So I'm going to tap on the pumpkin layer and create a new layer right above that. And then for my brush, I'm going to switch back to the coloring pencil. And I'm going to choose the same color I used to do the stem. So I'm going to just choose that color by sampling it with my finger. For the vines, I'm going to draw some lines that kind of come out from the stem and curl around like that. Do one over here. And now I can add some leaves. So I'll zoom in over here. For the pumpkin leaves, we're going to start by drawing an arch shape like that. And then on top of the arch, you're going to draw sort of a leaf shape, something like that. And then another leaf shape on either side. Then you're going to color it in. You can use the coloring method of the quick scribble, or you can just color it in by hand, whatever feels faster for you. With something small like this leaf, I'll just color it in by hand. Now we want to make it look a little more leaf-like. So we're going to curve this edge a little bit, kind of fill that in, just make that a little more organic looking. And then we're going to add little points on either side of the bottom of these leaves like that. And also right here on the middle part of the leaf. There we go. So now your leaf shape should look something like that. And you can connect it to your vine and then grab a little bit darker of a color. And I'll use the rough paper pencil to do my details like I have been. And you're going to start here from the middle where the stem connects and draw a line up. And from that same point, you're going to draw a line out and then a third line out like that. And then you can add little kind of branching veins like this. So we've got our cute little pumpkin leaf. So I'll do a couple more leaves on my pumpkin using the same method. So now I've got some vines and a few leaves. And I wasn't really loving how this was looking on this stark white background. So let's go ahead and just add a nice creamy color for the background. I'm going to go up to my layers, go down here to background color, and just choose something here in the yellows, just like a nice creamy color, something like that. And one more little detail, just so this pumpkin doesn't look like it's floating in the air, I'm just gonna add a nice little shadow at the bottom. So I'm gonna go up to my layers, I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna drag this layer down underneath all the other layers, so it's underneath my pumpkin. And then for my brush, I'm gonna choose that Quick Scribble Soft Fill. And then I'm gonna sample the background color, this kind of creamy color that we made. And then I'm just going to choose a color that's a little bit darker and more saturated for my shadow. And my brush size is at like 50%-ish. And I'm just going to go back and forth like this underneath my pumpkin, just to add a nice little shadow and help it look like it's grounded. Perfect. Don't need a lot there. So I'm getting a little bit of a Cinderella vibe from this pumpkin, so maybe I'll go ahead and just add a little bit of magic to this piece. You guys know me, you know how much I love my sparkles, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna choose the rough paper pencil, and I'll just create a new layer above all these other layers. And then for the color, I'll sample the background again, but this time I'll choose like kind of a darker, more yellow, so I'm kind of going this way, and I'll test that out, see how it looks on the orange. Okay, that looks good on all the colors. So I'll just go ahead and add some little sparkles, because now it's a magic pumpkin. Who doesn't love sparkles? I love them. And maybe I'll even try a different kind of sparkle. I'll draw these little kind of curvy sparkles. Oh, I like those. So, you know, optional step, but if you want to, you can add some little pizzazz and magic to your pumpkin. Now that we've added a little bit of sparkle to our pumpkin, I'm going to take it one more step and add just another touch of magic. I'm going to use one of my magic paper textured canvases to give it that little bit of something extra special. I've got my magic paper saved here on my iPad folder, and inside I have the 25 different magic papers that come with the magic paper set, and I am going to choose the one called Just a Little Kick. So I'm going to tap that to open it up, and it will import into Procreate. You can see it here in my gallery view. And then I'm going to just basically copy out my illustration. So I can go up to the Actions menu, Add, and choose Copy Canvas. That's going to copy everything that's in my canvas onto a single layer. And then I can go back to the gallery view and open up my magic paper. I'm just going to turn it to the side, so that's the same orientation as my other art piece. Then I can go to the Actions menu, Add, and choose Paste. And there I have my artwork. And as you can see, what it's done is just add this wonderful texture all over this piece. It kind of gives it an even more realistic feel. If you find that the colors look a little bit darker, the magic paper texture does kind of sometimes affect the color a little bit. But if you want to adjust it, you can go up to the Adjustments menu, Curves, and then just drag this bar. I like to start right in the middle and just drag it up a little bit until the colors look a little bit better. And the texture canvas is a little bit bigger, as you can see, than my artwork. So a really easy fix for that is to go up to your layers, and you can just turn off the magic paper texture group with this little checkbox. Select your background color, and then you can just drag that color into these kind of blank spots here. You could also just like crop the canvas too, that works, but I think that looks good. And then turn back on the magic paper. I think this is cool because you could really get a feel of how different it looks with the magic paper canvas. And now that we've doubled up the magic on this sweet little pumpkin, we are all done. I really love how it turned out, and the best part about it is you can use these same steps to draw pumpkins in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and colors. Over in Art Makers Club, if you're a member, you can get that pumpkin color palette that I mentioned with all these beautiful pumpkin colors and step-by-step instructions to create this cute little grouping of colorful pumpkins. Thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to see your beautiful pumpkin artwork. Again, I'm Lisa Bardot, and I help people find their creativity through drawing on the iPad. If you'd like to support me, I hope you'll check out my premium Procreate brush sets that inspire creativity at bardotbrush.com. And if you want to take your learning to the next level, you should join Art Makers Club. Art Makers Club is a joy-filled creative community and learning hub for digital art makers. As a member, you'll get access to a growing library of in-depth courses, live virtual events and tutorials, free Procreate brushes, and more. In our community clubhouse, you get to connect with like-minded learning artists, share your work, ask for feedback, participate in discussions, and so much more. Come join us in the club. You can learn more at artmakersclub.com. If you're sharing your work to Instagram, I would love to see it. Use the hashtag #BardotBrush. Thanks and happy art making! If you like this video, please subscribe for more awesome tutorials. And check out one of my other videos. Thanks and have a great day!